Hi folks, right then, oops, summer's here, so the sun's out and it just gave me some inspiration to do something that's a little bit more tropical and from sunnier climes. So this is an image from, it's called Santorini in Greece. It's quite a popular view. It's been photographed lots and lots and lots of times, but that's because of the nature of the building. It's white, it's nice crisp white with a blue top. Then you've got the beautiful sea behind, and then you've also got these distant hills. So it's quite a popular view, as I said. Now, the reason why I picked this one is because obviously we've got the sun in Greece, got plenty of sunshine, it's coming through. We've got these beautiful shadows and highlights as well. We've got this very dark cliff top here, and then we've got the subdued and sort of lighter hillsides in the background. Now, for my purposes, I have missed off boats and some of these little details here, gates and some umbrellas and that. I've missed them off. Now then, to transfer the image onto watercolour paper, because I'm doing this as a watercolour, I've used, for this purpose, I've used Daler & Rowney Aquafine hot press paper, acid free. It's 300 GSM. I mean, if I'm doing a commission or quite a lot of wet in wet, then I tend to use a heavier weight paper. Now, my usual paper is Fabriano Artistico. I like that because it's a rag cotton paper. But for this purposes, I'm using an A4, so I'm only doing a small piece today. So I've used this, I picked this Aquafine Smooth watercolour paper, okay? But you can use whatever watercolour paper you like. So the first thing is to get the image down on the paper. So my choice this time, I do use several methods. I use the grid method, freehand drawing sometimes, and tracing. So you can use a medium called trace down, which is like a carbon paper, and you put that onto your watercolour paper and you put your image or photograph on top and you draw around and you'll get an outline. I find that to be one of the worst ways of doing it because you do get quite a lot of the carbon or the it's not carbon, but the tracing, the black ink stuff all over the paper, and you know, if you're touching it with your fingers you get quite a lot of finger marks, and then you've got to try and erase them, and it's not that easy. One of the other methods that I use for tracing, if I'm tracing, is a light box, which is, this is what we've got here. Now, this one's a very thin light box, so it's not big and heavy like they used to be. It's light, it's only an A4, it's lit up now and I've got the image, so let me turn it off. Right, so it's turned off, that's the light box itself. This is the image, so it's got 3 light settings, so if you put that on there, like that, then you get your paper that you're going to be working on, and you put that on there, so you make sure you've got it on there, and when you look down you can see the image through it, so you can trace the lines that you need to. If you want it to stop there, you can put some tape on here at the back and fasten it onto the light box so that you can stop and lift the paper up and see that you haven't missed any spots. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. If you haven't got a light box, you can use a window in your house. That's easy enough. You just as long as you've got a lot of light coming through the window, you put your image on you put this image on the window. So you imagine where the light box is, you're just replacing it with a pane of glass, and then you put that on, and then you put that on, and then you can draw around it. So that everybody has a light box in the house, and that's a window. Okay, so that's how we get this particular image transferred. Or you could do the grid method, but then you are going to have to erase the grid lines off watercolour paper, which is not that easy. again. So this is why I've opted for this method, just for this particular piece. Okay, we followed the third rule. So if you divide your paper into 3, we've got the focal point is down in this bottom right hand corner, and then we've got something in the top going across, and then we've got the C in the middle. Most of the detail is going to be down here in the bottom right hand corner as well. Okay, so let me take this light box out of the way, unplug it so it's not coming on. There we go. I've published the image. I've got it in colour, but I've also printed it in black and white. The reason why I like to have a black and white picture is because then I can see the tonal values that are going off in this picture. So as you can see, the most distant hill is a lot lighter than any of these here. So you can see the tonal value that's going round, and then we've got this one which is in more mid-tone, and then we've got the dark tone here. And also for the sea, as you can see, we've got the horizon here, then we've got this light tone coming into a mid-tone and then gently into the darker tone here as it comes up. And again, it's a lot clearer for you to be able to see your highlights and your shadows, which have all been marked in. Okay, so let me move on. So that's my image drawn out. So let me move it up to the camera. There we go. So you can see I've got the distant hills drawn there lightly. What you will notice now is I put in the windows. Okay. So how I personally did this, I mean there's several ways again of doing this. Personally, what I did was I used a mechanical pencil, a 0.5mm. I used the H. Now, very carefully and very lightly, I drew these in, because if you're not careful with a mechanical pencil, if you press too hard, it can cause indentations on your paper, so that when you paint, they will show through. And all I did was I did lines diagonally across that way and the same that way. And then what I did was I put some little hexagonal triangles in with a where is it? This one, with a marker pen, which is a pigment liner. It was a 0.05. It was one of the finest ones. It's water resistant and waterproof, light fast, so it's ideal. So just put little little diamond shapes in for to make it look like trellis work on the windows. Okay, and I've left, so these pieces that are left behind I'm going to rub out, and then when we put the paint on, they will look like the crisscrosses in there. Okay, so like that, if we just rub them out. So just on the windows. I don't want to rub any of the other pencil work out just yet. So there we have our windows marked in with a fine liner or a pigment liner. Right, so I'll give you a couple of minutes to draw that out, and I'll be back in 2 minutes. So now we're almost ready to start painting, but before we do that, I am going to put on the upload, you're going to get the colour reference image. You can turn it into a black and white and print it if you want. I will put up a list of the materials. I will put a line drawing up if you want, so that you've got something to go by anyway. Another way that you can do it is you could, if you turn the picture over and put it on a light box, you can draw with a B pencil all the outlines that you want. Okay, so I've done a B pencil fairly heavy on there. Then all you can do is then turn it over, put it onto your paper, and again just redraw over the lines on the front, and you will get an image back onto your paper. Okay, so that's another way. So now what we're going to do, I'm just going to put the light on a minute so we can stop the shadows from forming. Okay, not forming as much. So the next stage is, before we start actually doing any painting, is, let me put that on. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to do some masking, because we're going to start by putting the water in on a wet and wet, and we're going to put these hills in, and then the final piece is going to be the building. So to make sure we don't get any of these colours or paints onto this building, because it is a white building, then we need to mask it off. So to mask it off, what I do is I have some brushes that are old brushes. I'm using this tissue as a bit of paper so when I rest my hand on it, I'm not transferring any oils out of my hand into this picture. So let me see if we can get that better. That's it. So I use, so for masking fluid, I've got some here, some Pebeo drawing gum. Now, it doesn't keep forever. You may think it does, but it doesn't. So just keep checking it. I mean, this has got on it, it hasn't got a date on it, it's just a thingy number. But if you take the top off, there you can see. So that's nice, fresh and clean. Now in the lid, there's some there. Now that will have coagulated and gone horribly gooey. That's what masking fluid is. It's a latex. So when it dries, it's quite sticky and pulley. Okay. Now what I also have here is I have one of the old little jam pots, and what I've done is I've put in some flakes of soap. So I've taken a bar of soap. So instead of having a great big bar of soap here, I've taken some flakes, put it in there, so that when my brush is wet and I go in there, it puts a little bit of the soap onto the brush. And I'll explain why shortly. So what we're going to do, we're going to go round this building, and I'm only going to put about 1/2 inch of the inside of the building in masking fluid. Now if you don't feel confident enough, you could cover the whole thing, but you don't need to. You just have to be careful when you're painting up to the edges. Okay, so, and we're masking that off so that no paint gets into it. Now we have got these two little crosses here, so for that we do need to use a fine brush, or a brush with a very good point on it. As I say, I keep all my old brushes, and the old brushes that I keep are what I use for the masking fluid. Now masking fluid does damage your brushes beyond a shadow of a doubt, but to keep them going for as long as you can, this is the way I use them. I'm going to put the little crosses on first, so I'm using this very fine brush. So I dip it in the water, okay, and then before I put it into the masking fluid, I put it into this little, so the brush is wet, put a little bit of water in there so it brings the soap alive, and then what I do is I make sure, so I twist the brush and pull it this way, so I'm not splaying the hairs on the brush. I want them quite close together, but I've got a layer of soap on there. So that now is going to protect that brush. Make sure there's no water lumps on this ferrule. And then I'm just going to dip it into this masking fluid. Okay. Now this is a very fine brush, so all I'm wanting to do, if you can see, I'll zoom in if we can. Let's have a look, zoom right in. Move it over this way a little bit. So you can see here we've got this very small cross. So I've got my masking fluid on my brush, and then I'm going to dab it on the piece of tissue so we don't get big lumps coming off. And then I'm just going to very carefully mark off that cross there, very, very small there. Okay, and then we've got one here as well. Okay. go. So I've got those marked off, so I can zoom back out again now. And now I'm going to clean that brush off, wipe it on some kitchen roll, like that. So that's finished with. So now I've got a wider brush, which is this one. Okay, so again, I'm going to do the same thing. I wet the brush. Okay, and then I rub it into the soap, but pull it towards you all the time and keep twisting so it keeps the hairs of your brush sort of stops them from splaying all over, because if they splay and you get some of that masking fluid on the splay, it will mark where it will go into there. When you've got enough soap on your brush, so this protects the brush for a certain amount of time, then again I'm just going to put me into the masking fluid. I'm just going to make sure the ferrule hasn't got any dripping off it, and then I'm going to start. So if you like, I'm going to start down here and then just carefully go up to that line. Okay, so try and keep your lines as straight as you can. Okay, you may have to keep dipping in a little bit into your masking fluid, and if you need to top it up with soap. So again, across there. Okay, up that side. So you can see I'm only going sort of leaving it that edge round there. Make sure all of the area is covered with masking fluid and you haven't got any gaps, because wherever your gaps are, that's where your paint will seep through. It will find a way. Okay. And then I've got this big ball here to do. Okay, around this side here. And making sure all these edges are nice and clean and crisp. Right, move the tissue out of the way. So now we're coming round to this side of the building. Okay. Okay, and then up here. I'm just double checking that all of right round the edge has been, there's no gaps as such. Plenty of masking fluid on there. Okay. So that's all we need to do. We don't need to do anything in. I mean, if you don't feel confident enough, then yes, you can cover it all. But I find it's just as easy to do that. Now I've cleaned my brush in the water. Okay, I'm going to let that masking fluid dry. Now it won't dry as we know dry. It'll be tacky. Well, that's how it's meant to be. So I'll clean the brush like that. Okay, so keep those two brushes separate. I keep them away from the rest of the brushes so because they're masking fluid. Now if you look at the water, obviously it's gone a bit. So before I start painting, I will be changing that water. I put the top back on the masking fluid and same on the soap and put them away. Okay, so we can put them away. Now we're going to leave this for a few minutes to dry. So this is an ideal point to finish this first video. Now I'll just give you a couple of pointers on masking fluid. Now these are my personal experiences. Masking fluid doesn't keep forever. So do keep a check on it and don't keep it for too long. Make sure you put the top back on it so that the air doesn't get in there too much. And when I'm putting it on a piece like this, I want to get this bit finished so that I can take the masking fluid off as soon as possible, because it can damage your paper. I mean, I do try in most circumstances not to use it. But obviously in this, because we've got quite a lot of white for this building, which has got shadows in it, and we've got the blue, but we've got this sea and this very dark hill behind it, then it does need protecting so we don't get any of those colours on. And that's why I've masked it, so that I can get these areas done, and then we can concentrate on the building, but I can remove the masking fluid so it doesn't cause any damage. Now when we come to taking it off, you could rub it with your finger, but again, you've got to be careful about getting oils off your hand onto your paper, because sometimes if you do that and you put paint on, you can see where your fingers have been because of the oils that come out of your fingers. So that's why I always have a spare bit of paper like this, so that I can put it on when I'm working and rest my hand on it so that I don't damage or put any oils on. Another way of removing the masking fluid is you can buy some blocks that look like crepe, you know, the old crepe you used to get on your soles of your shoes. But you could just use a normal rubber, a nice clean rubber, and just gently persuade it to come off, and then you can get hold of it and pull it gently. But as I say, very gently, and always pull it away from where your paint area is. So once we've painted this, you would pull it in towards the building to get the masking fluid off. But we'll go through that when we get to it. You can see I've done these two very small crosses there with a small brush, because obviously you don't want it great big fat crosses there that are going to show up and look too big. Okay, so this is the end of this first video. So it's about getting the drawing down, putting your windows in, and then masking off. So while I change my water and put my few bits away, and then I come back and start the next video, this masking fluid should be dry. I mean, it's getting there now because it's quite a warm day today. And if you touch it, it feels tacky. And that's how it's going to be. It's not going to dry solid or anything. It's going to be tacky. Now, you are supposed to be able to leave it on for up to 2 days. But to be quite honest, like I say, I like to get it back off as soon as possible. Because the longer you leave it on there, it starts eating into the paper. And that's where you can get problems. Okay, so thank you for watching this video. And we'll move on to the next video as soon as I've got cleared up. And we're away with some painting. Okay, enjoy. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.